Hello everyone, my name is Jim and thank you so much for stopping by my channel. Today's video topic is intermittent fasting. So, what is it? What does it do for you and why would you want to do it? To do intermittent fasting properly, you have to have a strategy, and it's very helpful to understand what it does for you because it almost works like magic. Please stick around until the end of the video to get my specific ideas on a strategy to get started, even if you're not eating in a healthy fashion right now. As always, anything that I share with you on my channel is not intended as medical advice, and please do check with your primary care physician before making any lifestyle changes. Let's get right into it. One of the worst things someone can do regarding their diet is to eat multiple times a day over and over again. Why? Every time we eat food, it spikes our insulin. Doing that 2 or 3 times a day for our 2 or 3 meals a day is fine, but when you throw in snacks 8, 10 times more a day, that could easily lead to insulin resistance, which then cascades into elevated blood glucose levels called hyperglycemia, and then if you leave that unchecked, it could lead to prediabetes and then ultimately type 2 diabetes. Once you have type 2 diabetes, you are at increased risk for heart disease, stroke, foot problems, eye and kidney disease. Sounds like a path to avoid, right? I am so glad that you're here today so that you can learn how to avoid spiking your insulin over and over again and hopefully improve your health. One last point I would like to make. If you are snacking and eating multiple meals a day and you're eating junk food, please start off by eliminating the junk food from your diet. Highly processed things like chips, muffins, donuts, candy, ice cream, sodas, cakes, and pies are terrible for you, especially when eaten on a regular basis. Please limit these types of snacks to the bare minimum, ultimately removing them from your daily eating habits. Intermittent fasting is defined on the Johns Hopkins Medical site as an eating plan that switches between eating and fasting on a regular schedule. I think that's a great definition. Before I get into the strategies and steps, let me explain to you some of the benefits that you can enjoy from doing intermittent fasting regularly. Typically, folks that do it so they can lose weight, but they are also lowering their risk for type 2 diabetes. I can tell you that from my own experience, there was absolutely a change in my mental clarity and my energy. Now, let's answer the question, why is it good for us? When you do intermittent fasting for many hours a day, a process begins called autophagy, which is a marvelous process that destroys damaged or redundant cellular components within our body. In other words, it's like a built-in vacuum cleaner for damaged and underperforming cells. There are many versions of intermittent fasting, and you've probably seen them listed by numbers like 18:6. That's the intermittent fasting that I do. Very simply stated, for 18 hours a day, I'm not eating or snacking, and for the rest of the time, I'm eating like a champ. I can assure you this did not happen overnight, and it does take time to train yourself to get comfortable doing this daily. Ultimately, I have eliminated a typical morning breakfast and pushed my first meal of the day out until 1 or 2 o'clock. Speaking of the word breakfast, the meaning of it is to break your fast. So guess what? I have great news for you. If you're starting to feel a little overwhelmed right now, how would you like to know that you are fasting every single day? How? When you go to sleep at night, well, I hope when you go to sleep at night, you're not eating until you wake up the next day. So, by pushing your first meal forward a little further and making your last meal of the day a few hours before you go to sleep, you can begin to extend the number of hours that you're fasting. So let's get into that strategy. If you are not on a regular meal plan right now, and you are snacking between meals, the first thing I want you to work on is getting those snacks out of your regular daily activity. That is step number one to keep your insulin from spiking regularly. And you should only spike it when you have your meals. So, as they say, Rome was not built in a day, and switching from having multiple snacks and meals a day to just 2 or 3 meals a day is a process. I recommend you start off by setting limits for yourself so that the snacking that you're doing is limited to a certain time frame. And then each week, remove 1 or 2 more times of the day that you won't snack until finally you get to the point where you're enjoying your 3 meals a day and feeling satiated from it. Please remember that when you are fasting, in other words, you're not consuming food, your body is able to get into the process of autophagy over time. As soon as you begin to eat something, our bodies shift into the very important and complicated process of a digestion. So please remember that you are either fasting or you're eating and digesting. Now you should be ready to take the next step, which is pushing your first meal of the day further out into your morning or even eventually to noon. I can remember when I first started. Initially, I was eating my first meal around 10, and then slowly over time, over many weeks, I pushed it to 11 and then noon. And now finally, my first meal of the day is usually around 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Trust me when I say this, it does take some dedication and planning, and I highly recommend having a schedule for yourself, keep track of things on a calendar, and the great news is this is so worth doing because your well-being and health will be very positively impacted. Okay, let's discuss my strategy if you are snacking and eating 3 meals a day. Step number 1 is to start to restrict those snacks. The ultimate goal is to stop snacking altogether, but until you do, the 2 best places to start would be to stretch your morning out so that you're not eating, and then eat sooner and sooner in the evening, well before you go to bed. You must narrow the window of time that you eat anything. I highly recommend not eating snacks after dinner, and if you get a craving before bed, have a warm cup of tea or even a glass of water. The next morning, you can follow the same strategy by not eating anything until your first meal of the day. Once you've eliminated snacking between meals, you are well on your way. The next step of this strategy is to enjoy just 3 meals a day for a while, and then start pushing breakfast further and further out until before you know it, it's afternoon before you have your first meal of the day. Now you are sitting right on top of the world with 2 meals a day, no snacking in between, and most studies indicates that autophagy can begin after 12 to 16 hours of fasting. Now you can really enjoy the benefits of intermittent fasting. As always, I appreciate you joining me so much today, and I hope this video inspired you to go for it. Get started with intermittent fasting and see how it does for you. If you enjoyed this content and you know someone who could benefit from this information, please share my video with them, and I would love it if you put it on your social media. Lastly, it helps me a lot if you would subscribe to my channel and like this video. Until next time, be well, and I'll see you in the next video.